Very cool. Yeah, so this is the ComfyUI GitHub. If you want to download it, it has the instructions here, git clone in the README. We can go over this. There's a Jupyter notebook, but what I found is that like running Google Colab and ComfyUI is like absolutely terrible. And the reason for that is ComfyUI does these things called custom nodes that essentially, if you don't run it locally, you have to install those custom nodes every time into the Colab notebook. So if you don't have, I guess, persistent storage or persistent memory, it's just really hard to run in the cloud. That's like the issue with ComfyUI, in my opinion, as opposed to like automatic 1111.
Excuse me, I tried to install ComfyUI with Stable Diffusion, but you have application with stability matrix. It's application you can download, and it's in simplicity with just one button for install with code in your.
Oh, like a direct download link here, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that one.
I see.
Just I have installed in my MacBook for more easy.
And is it working?
What?
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, there's a few like one-click installers to install ComfyUI. I would say the difficulty though becomes that if you install it on your machine, you need a good GPU in order to run like the more performant workflows. So if you're running it on your MacBook, right, and even if you have like the M3 chip, that's still going to be very slow compared to something like a 4090 or a 4080 Super, right? So that's why I really recommend. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what do you think about Pinocchio? Because I tried as well, and I do have the MacBook M3 Max. I thought it would work, but it's still very trash. But what do you think about Pinocchio? Because I installed it and it looks like it was running ComfyUI, but yeah, I don't know if it's worth it or if you used it or.
Yeah, my personal opinion around like Pinocchio and things like that, they're really great to get started. And so this is, let me just show you Pinocchio so everybody understands. It is, I think it's Pinocchio.computer. Probably spelled that wrong. Pinocchio Computer AI. This is essentially like a service that offers one-click installers. So we can come here and get like Forge, ComfyUI, and then one-click install with Pinocchio. A lot of people do using Pinocchio, but my personal preference is I'm not really, so I guess like preference for my background, I'm not really too technical myself. I use a lot of like Claude and ChatGPT to help me understand like the things that I'm interfacing with, understanding the steps of what I'm doing. But I prefer, what I do is I actually have ComfyUI installed via like git clone. So I git cloned ComfyUI, and then I have like virtual environments running. So let me just show you in VS Code what I do. Is I essentially have, this is my ComfyUI directory. So I git cloned. So it'd be like git clone, and then you grab like this, and then you paste that in, and then it'll download everything that you need. And then I use this thing called a virtual environment so that I can manage my like Python dependencies. And this is like pretty technical, but if you're interested, this is what I do personally. And then I have like where is it? Like a launch script. Here it is, launch.sh, that essentially it'll activate the virtual environment every time I'm using ComfyUI, and we'll activate it with this like Python function. So it's a very simple script. So this is what I like to do as opposed to Pinocchio, simply because it enables me to manage my Python dependencies. And like ComfyUI is not comfy in the sense that if you're running it locally, sometimes what'll happen, here, let me just drop this in the chat before I forget. Sometimes what'll happen is an update will come in to ComfyUI, and everything will break, like it won't detect like your GPU anymore. So I have to go in and reinstall my dependencies. And so if I'm using something like Pinocchio, everything is packaged up in Docker. So I just like having that flexibility by git cloning it, doing a virtual environment, and like managing dependencies that way. But again, that's like a very technical thing, or like more technical than you need, I would say. But yeah, you can definitely use Pinocchio. I've seen a lot of people use it and have like good luck. I think like PERS might even be using that.
Okay. But you still have to rent a GPU, right?
Yeah, so if you don't have the local GPU, again, that what I just described is probably like very specific to like local. Yeah, you would still need a GPU. I think RunPod, I think what RunPod does now, I actually haven't visited in quite a while.
I've seen this website like 3 days ago when I was trying to choose between this and Vast, and I chose Vast because it looks a bit cheaper, but it's the same kind of stuff, right? To run GPU and deploy template. Yeah, template. It looks like Vast. Okay.
Oh, Vast has templates as well, or ComfyUI. Okay. Yeah, and you said you were having trouble with Vast, right?
I don't know how to launch it. I went to GPU. I launched ComfyUI once, but then I just couldn't find it again. And I don't even know where to put my saved sensors and checkpoints and whatever. So yeah. I
Yeah,
got
okay,
lost
that makes a lot
anyway.
of sense. Let me show you guys Glyph in the meantime. Let me boot this up, which is the run pod SD ComfyUI, and we can explore it together. So I'm going to choose a 4090 on this machine here. And then we can revisit this in 15 minutes, but deploy on demand. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, ComfyUI is very difficult to install. It has two problems, right? Difficult to install, and then the custom dependencies and things just break. It's still early, right? It's a free open source tool. There is like a team behind it now, like a startup trying to like make it better and improve it. But for now, it's still very difficult to use. And again, you need a very expensive GPU. So this is a company that I'm doing some consulting for, but I think it's actually a very fantastic tool. And so it's glyph.app. It's essentially fun AI apps anyone can build. That's like the catch line. You can do 20 free runs a day, but I can give you like the creator pass, which will give you 200 free a day. And so you just can come here to build, and you can go to the ComfyUI block. And as of today, I think this is a pretty fully fleshed out Comfy environment. So you can go to edit in ComfyUI editor. And there's quite a bit of checkpoints here. We have everything from Flux to Flux Schnell. Flux is actually loaded in a different way. But let me show you like an example Flux workflow. This is one that I did. This is I probably shouldn't be showing this because it's a really crazy one, but I'm not sure if you all have seen Mystique by FreePick, but this is essentially like that workflow.
Yes.
And you can, it's like insane. Look at all those nodes. Yeah, this is intimidating. We're not going to go over this, but you can see here we have everything like Flux, all those things in here. And like the cool thing about Glyph is that you build the little mini app. And so now here in the prompt, you just essentially go from like very complex workflow to a really simple to use interface, right? So theoretically, Matteo, you could build one for the cohort or for your team and then share it, right? Again, the only problem is everything is like public, but the one workaround to like do things in private is to hit remix and then do it in this like builder draft editor. So if you do want to use ComfyUI, you want private runs, don't tell the Glyph team because we're gonna fix this eventually, but this is the way that you can do it like privately. Otherwise, if you go here in like the public, everything comes down and you can see it here. But yeah, this is, like I said, the Mystique FreePick workflow. It's like latent upscaling, but let's go into something that I think a little more simpler. So let's do just like a basic ComfyUI workflow. So we'll select the ComfyUI block, and I don't know like how well versed you want to get, but what I do is I typically will grab a workflow from like something that I see online, something that I want to see done, right? And then I'll bring that workflow and modify it to my needs. So I guess what we'll do is we'll do like a basic Flux text to image workflow. So I'll go in Google, I'll go Flux text to image workflow, and then add ComfyUI. And then I think the best way to look is sometimes on Reddit, they'll have some. No, that's not a good one. It's not popping up. Hold on, let me just go back to the ComfyUI GitHub. So sometimes you do have to work for the workflows. Yeah, Comfy Flows is one that you can look at. Banadoko is another one that has really amazing workflows that people share. I like to go into the GitHub to, another thing you want to be careful of, I should probably mention this, is if you're running it locally and you're like installing nodes and grabbing workflows from the internet, there's been like a dangerous trend going around of if you have your own machine and you just download a random node, there could be a virus in there. So again, that's the benefit of using like a rented machine or like an online service, is because the online services pre-vet the workflows that if they're not good, they just wouldn't have them. And if you have a cloud GPU, if you download a virus, it's like not your problem, right? Because you're just renting the GPU. But yeah, if you're running it locally, just be careful of like where you're grabbing workflows. I personally like to grab them from official sources, like this one, ComfyUI workflows. And then all I did here was just ComfyUI examples. And there should be some for Flux. And then, yeah, the workflows are inside of these images. I wonder if he has the JSON. There's examples. It doesn't have it. Okay, so I'm going to launch my own ComfyUI really quickly because it's in an image and we need it in a JSON format. So 1 second. Actually, let's just check out that ComfyFlows site really quickly. Actually haven't used that. Do they have anything for Flux? Yeah, this one doesn't seem to have anything. Another popular site too is like Civitai, Civit AI. Oh, of course it's down. All right, let me just go here to my local. Okay, and then we'll drag that in there. So the interesting thing about ComfyUI is like sometimes they'll be like, here's the workflow. And then you'll be like, where's the work? Here, I'll show you this. They'll be like, where's the workflow? Like in here, like Flux examples, there's no JSON, but the workflow is actually embedded into the image. So all I did here was like in my local instance, just dragged and dropped the image. And so now the workflow comes up. So let's say that we had the JSON, right? You just grab this, the example JSON. People, when they're sharing workflows, will typically share the JSON. Sometimes they do the images, but usually it's the JSON. You can just come in here into Glyph and then copy that JSON. And then now we have Flux Schnell ComfyUI workflow inside of Glyph. And you can see it's like the same thing in my local instance, except that I didn't have to go in and download and get clone stuff. I just grabbed the workflow and pasted it into Glyph.
And on Glyph, you don't need to run GPUs?
No, you don't. So they essentially have a like ever existing pool of GPUs that are using. So sometimes there will be a queue, sometimes it'll be long. Honestly, there's like a dedicated GPU pool for ComfyUI, and not a lot of people use like ComfyUI on the platform. They're mainly using like other things, meaning like existing API endpoints. So I think Glyph is like a great spot to use ComfyUI right now because, like I said, it's free, it's like simple to set up, and a lot of the really important things are there. And yeah, if we just run this Glyph, it'll do this like bottle using like the Flux Schnell workflow, using all the base example stuff. But I'm gonna show you right now in a bit. So we'll run this. Something might be wrong. 1 second. That's insatiation another way. Hold on 1 second. We'll do this one. Huh, something's wrong. I see light. Oh, I see what's going on. Gotta select all these. Flux one dev. So yeah, in ComfyUI, you need to, anytime you're selecting like models, like this load VAE in dual clip loader, you need to come here. And all I did, the reason it wasn't working is the models weren't selected. So that's what's going on there. And then it should work now. So again, all I did is just run this Glyph. And yeah, I just grabbed a workflow. I ensured the models were selected in that model loader, and then now it's running the glyph. And so now it made that image, which should be the same from this example here. Yeah, it's pretty close to the image. The anime girl holding a cake. And so, yeah, like the cool thing, as I mentioned with glyph is that you don't need to set up the GPUs. You don't need to set up ComfyUI. You can just use it. And if you're using it in this like builder mode, that's how you can keep it private, which I think is pretty cool. Again, a hack for now, it'll be fixed later to make stuff private. And to essentially make it like modular, meaning you pass in any prompt, Glyph does this thing, they use blocks. They abstract away like code and are using blocks instead. And so all I did was I selected a text input block. And so this now becomes a variable that you can use in like other blocks. So this is like, I can call it like the prompt. And so this input one, we're going to pass this into ComfyUI. So I can just get rid of all this prompt. The clip text and code, this is what's going to be generated in the image. You can see the input variable down here is input one. So we'll do that. And then there's also another cool thing up here, which is like a Comfy AGI, which is like text to Comfy workflow. So you can try that out too, but it's experimental. But we'll say like penguin drinking a cup of coffee that says ComfyUI is hard. And so what's happening is this prompt gets passed into the ComfyUI workflow so that you essentially don't need to open up the ComfyUI editor every time to change the prompt. Yeah, and so there you get the ComfyUI is hard. The penguin drinking the ComfyUI is hard. Penguin drinking a cup of coffee that says ComfyUI is hard. I think that's like pretty basic for Flux. Did I go too fast on that piece? Was it okay regarding like workflows to ComfyUI, all that stuff?
Oh, it's fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I
that's
think like the
impressive.
next thing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just saying it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool platform. I think
Yeah.
Glyph to use it really easily. We can also go over like the run pod stuff in just a second. It is running.
Oh.
I do see the GUIs here. But I did want to show like LoRas really quickly because I think they're very powerful and like specifically for like creatives like yourself, training a LoRa on a specific like product and then generating images with that could be very powerful. Doing things like if the client says, hey, I want like a custom model or something like that and this style or of this person, I think that can be very powerful. There's currently 2 ways right now to, oh yeah, is everyone familiar with the concept of the LoRa, maybe by chance? I'll go over that really quick.
Training? No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's essentially like so what's the best way to explain this? So the base model, right? You can think of it as just like one big Lego piece, right? The base model in this like Lego piece understands specific things based on what it was trained, right? So it knows how to do logos, obviously knows how to do penguins, coffee, like it understands text. And yeah, exactly. It is like fine tuning in GPTs. You're essentially introducing, they call them adapters, new information into this base Lego piece. So you're like, and this new information could be anything from yourself. So if I uploaded 10 pictures of Miguel, I would be able to introduce Miguel with the adapter into the model, which is a very popular use case for like headshots, meaning like the photos that people are doing, very popular by like peterlevels.io. You can do like style LoRas, like introducing like comic book illustrations from like a certain artist that wasn't there before, or even doing things like products, right? So say there's like a Louis Vuitton bag, right, that the model doesn't know, you can, because it's like from the new spring 2025 line, right? You could train that into the model and then do models like real people models, like holding that bag and things like that. There's been like a very big improvement on the LoRa training side because the Flux model has like it's called like a 16 channel VAE, but essentially it just learns better and it learns concepts better and it's more powerful for LoRa training. So that's why you might have seen over on Twitter, on X, LoRa training has been getting really popular and like really viral. It's because the results have gotten significantly better because Flux is just a significantly better model than SDXL. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. there's 3 ways to train a LoRa. You could do, again, like local/collab. The problem with this is like you need a very powerful GPU, and it's the same problem with ComfyUI too. You need persistent storage, because what happens if you try to train it in collab? I've done a few trainings in collab. Is the LoRa trainings take an hour to 2 hours, and collab, if you don't have the tab open, will shut down on you and you'll lose the checkpoint. The way LoRa training is done is it's like a very long process, and it does it in steps. And so if you're training in like a virtual environment like collab, where it's not like persistent, so to speak, it'll shut down because it'll think that you're not using the collab notebook, and you'll lose all that progress. So what I actually recommend, and this is, some people would think it's like controversial, but I think it's like the best way to do it, is there's 2 services, foul.ai and then replicate.com, that offer LoRa training. And it'll cost you like $2 to $3 to train a LoRa. But I think like using these services is better, because you're gonna get a good result, and you're just paying for the GPU anyways. Foul is a little more expensive, but they do it pretty fast, and they give you like free credits and stuff like that. There's like coupons out now. Like everyone's trying to just incentivize people to use their thing, so they're giving out free money. There's a coupon for Replicate for $10 in this Matt Wolf video.
Oh,
Let me. It's here. Train on Foul, train on Collab. Yeah, here's a link to $10 for free at Replicate.
can you put it in the chat, because I was so ready to try it like yesterday, the
Yeah.
replicate thing.
And then I
Thank
think there's one
you.
for Foul too. Let me just put the video in there, and then it's in the here, because I think I can. Okay, that's the code. Hold on. So this is a code for Replicate. Oh yeah, and that's collab.google. I wouldn't really recommend collab, to be honest, because unless you're like a programmer, it can get pretty daunting and pretty confusing. And like I said, persistent storage is a really big problem on collab. You can mount your Google Drive, but there's another. I think there's a coupon for Foul, and I'll send that over later. I just gotta go find it. But essentially, I really like Foul. You come here to this Flux LoRa thing, and I was actually training some LoRas with it yesterday. This is not the one, actually, sorry. General training. As you can see, I did like some training runs. So you can make it as easy as uploading 10 images of a subject, like meaning 10 selfies of yourself. And now you have a LoRa with 10 images of yourself. Or you can also do what I like to do, which is like manually caption the images. And then here, let me show you what I mean by that. So yesterday I was training a logo LoRa. And so what I did was I manually captioned 1 images of logos. And so that actually helped it. Let me show you the logos that I trained it on. I have it in. Documents. Logos. So I had 50 logos that I just grabbed from the internet, and I trained, I like manually captioned each one. And then I use that in conjunction with the images. So like manual captions plus images, and it gets you like a better LoRa result. But to be honest, you don't really need it. It learns pretty well. So you just essentially would take like images. Let me go back to Foul. You just go here to add images. You would grab your 10 images. And then I would come here to additional settings. You don't need to change anything else. These settings are like pretty solid. And then you can add a trigger word. For the trigger word, I would use TOTK. That's like kind of universal trigger word that people use. Reason they use it is like, it means nothing, meaning that the model won't confuse TOTK with something else. So if you use the trigger word of logo, for example, if I'm training this and I'm using the trigger word of logo, the model will get confused because it already knows what logo is. So it's much harder to introduce like the concept of logos. So if you're using like TOTK, it's like doesn't mean anything. in like any language. Or maybe it means Tears of the Kingdom for Legend of Zelda, but it's pretty arbitrary. So then like whenever you use TOTK, you'll get the concept that you're trying to introduce. So like TOTK is like a pretty popular one. And yeah, you essentially run the training and you hit start. I'm not going to hit start because it does cost $5. They have a newer version that's faster, but I haven't tested it. And it's $2, the faster version. But I would just, if you want to train on LoRa, again, like you have the free credits, do it there. You would just hit start. And then once it's done, you'll see like completed and you can run inference on it here in Val. And it'll charge you. So I'm going to show you how you can do it for free on Glyph. But so I actually trained a puzzle one. So let me just show you it working. So a jigsaw puzzle in the style of TOTK of mountains. So you're going to see in like using TOTK, I'm like evoking out like a specific concept that I trained in the LoRa. And this concept is like puzzle pieces. And you can see right here, I was able to evoke out the puzzle pieces that I trained into the LoRa using like the concept word, trigger word TOTK.
I was wondering, is Flux realism LoRa or is it the base model? I don't remember.
Yeah, so there's a realism LoRa. Let me show you also where you can find LoRas to use.
But then
So,
it means you can't train another LoRa on Flux realism. Or you can combine two LoRas.
yeah, you can combine the LoRas. So what people like to do is they'll use like the Flux realism LoRa, and then they'll also use like a LoRa of themselves, and they use them together. And so now you have like more realistic. Yeah. So with LoRas, as Matteo mentioned, you can stack them and get like really interesting results that way too. Yeah, there's on Hugging Face. I'll send this link in just a second. There's like LoRa the Explorer that has like a bunch of like LoRa examples too that you can train and again use for free here too. There's a lot of places you can use this stuff for free right now. And so you can see like a bunch of the existing LoRas. And this is the realism one that Matteo was just mentioning. So it can be like a realistic photo of a man eating a hamburger. Oh, it takes 45 seconds. Yeah, this one's a little slow.
And I was just wondering, sorry, is Replicate and Flux, or I don't remember the name, the other one, are they like public, private?
So the LoRas that you train are private, but you can make them public. And I'll show you how to put them on Hugging Face in just a second.
Okay.
But yeah, this is like just a resource for you to find LoRas to use in conjunction with the LoRas that you have. And I'll show you how to use the LoRas too in just a second for free on Glyph and in ComfyUI. But yeah, now you have like realistic photo of man eating a hamburger. I don't know how good this image is, but yeah. Yeah, so the way that you make them public and put them on Hugging Face is you come here to put on Hugging Face, you grab an access token from, you have to make a Hugging Face account. You grab an access token from your account settings. So you would come here, create new token, give it right permission. You would paste that in there. You essentially would do like your username. So like AP, so my username on Hugging Face is AP123, and then you call it like whatever. So like Flux puzzle. And then you tell it the instance prompt like TOTK. And what it'll do is it'll make like a repository. So I did like Flux logos. And in that repository, it'll have like your safe tensors. So now you can take this like file anywhere. So if you're like using it on RunPod or using it on Glyph, this is how you can use that, the LoRa in conjunction with that. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But yeah, that's LoRa training. It's going really viral on Twitter right now, or X. And yeah, I think that's one definitely like big value add that you could bring to like your portfolio companies is definitely experiment with it first, but say they have a product, right? Like they have, like I mentioned, like the Louis Vuitton bag. And maybe they're like, they want to see how it would look like in different advertisements, maybe with, you could test a variety of different like people holding the bag in different environments and different styles. And again, it'll learn the concept or the subject very well. You can also train on like people, but I think the product photography is an interesting one right now. But yeah, any questions on like training a LoRa? And then we're going to talk about how to use it like more in depth right now. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it's like relatively straightforward to train a LoRa, given how good Flux is. you want to use 10 images at the minimum. I would say 10 is good for a product, and make them like diverse. What I mean by that is if I take right now 2 selfies of myself, or let's say I take 10 selfies of myself right now in this current position, like I just screenshot myself, that's actually a bad training set. Like you want diversity, meaning like I want the background to be different. I want myself wearing like different t-shirts, right? So that when I go to like when I go to use the model, if I upload 10 photos that are all the same, it's gonna associate myself with these headphones, with this t-shirt, with that background, right? Like I want diversity so that it understands that like I myself am what it's training on, not like the t-shirt and the headphones and things like that. Diversity is really good in the data set. That again, like training can be like a whole like specific hour-long video or like hour-long tutorial. But the gist of it is just use 10 photos. I would use like Foul or Replicate for now. Oh yeah, overwhelmed by the number of links and options in Hugging Face. It's hard to know there which part of the code goes. Yeah, and so I don't try it. Yeah, Hugging Face is definitely for the developers. I've spoken to them in the past about, are you interested in like doing more like for like the technical artists people? And they don't really seem to have an interest in that. So I don't think it'll ever change, unfortunately. But I think the important thing about Hugging Face is like knowing where to go to get what you need and then extracting that information. So let me think. Yeah, Hugging Face can be overwhelming, to be honest. The other place too is like Civet AI. This one's like more like geared towards like artistry, but the only problem with Civet AI is, I don't know how to say this like professionally, but it has a lot of really like ugly NSFW content. So just be careful when you use Civet AI. Like some of the models on here, like a big part of their user base like engages in some pretty weird things that they're making with the models. So be careful when you grab models from here, just because some of them will have those NSFW concepts imbued into them. I usually don't recommend Civet AI, but it is more easier to digest for the non-technical crowd. I really wish that there was like a in-between of Hugging Face and Civet AI where you had, but I digress. That's my own rant. Yeah, I would say that from here, it would get a little more technical of like how to use the LoRa in conjunction with ComfyUI, but maybe we could do that for another day. But I have been going over a lot and I haven't really been stopping to see what people are saying. But yeah, are there any questions so far? I'm always getting lost there as well, where Replicate is just easier. Yeah, definitely understand. Any questions so far? Any feedback? Anything you want me to cover again? This is my first time doing this type of thing, so definitely receptive to whatever.
I saw Jeremy asked if using Hugging Face on demand GPU was okay.
Ah, okay. I would not use Hugging Face on demand GPUs. The reason for that is there's two things. One, it's very technical. Like if I'm using a Hugging Face on demand GPU, so I made a very popular one a few months back called Illusion Diffusion. And so I had to like program all this like to use it. You have to make like a Gradio application, which is Python, and then you have to use diffusers. It takes like way too long. It's really hard. If you're using it for like other people to use like your tool, like for my case, I wanted to make a simple thing for developers to use. That's a good use case, but that's extremely rare. Instead, there's like other things that you can use for free. So there's Hugging Face Spaces that are like free apps. I wouldn't really use it too much because they used to do it where you could make the images like unlimited. But what's happening now is that they cap you to 5 to 10. And you have there's only a specific pool of GPUs that they enable now. So an example is like when Illusion Diffusion was really viral in like October, they put 50 GPUs just on that Hugging Face space. So if you're using the space, you're getting an image out pretty quickly. But what happened is like it overwhelmed their like systems. So now they have this thing called 0 GPU. And so they have one cluster of, I don't know how many GPUs. I think it's a lot of them for all the spaces. It's definitely resource constrained now.
Actually, I'm waiting since 1,600 seconds for an image to generate from a Hugging Face, but yeah, so it's kind of
exactly
unusable.
Yeah, it becomes unusable when something goes viral. Which again goes back to that they're trying to cater to the developer crowd. So their rationale is it doesn't matter if it takes 1,600 seconds to generate, because if you're a developer, like who they're trying to target, you would just duplicate the thing and use your GPU, use it on your local, like you would take the code and use it on your own machine. So that's why I work for them, but I really recommend Glyph because this is like actually for the consumers, meaning like if you want, and you don't have to build something from scratch to use it, which is pretty cool. They have a bunch of these like templates. If I wanted to use this like claymation Flux dev thing, I can just come here and people are making interesting things. But like Iguana, and then now I'm using like that Comfy workflow and that LoRa without having to do anything, right? And I can like experiment with a bunch of different things. So Glyph to me is almost like the, oh yeah, go ahead.
Is there an API to access it, or is it front end only?
Yeah, so there's front end and API. So the way, I think there's like, but honestly, it's not really an API first company or not a B2B company. So if you want to use APIs, I highly recommend FAL. And the reason for that is because if you're like, if you have a client that, you know, your deliverable is like some type of thing, meaning some type of LoRa, Glyph will cap you, even if you have the creator pass at 200 runs a day. And, you know, for sometimes for clients, they're going to be doing like thousands a day for whatever reason. Maybe it's a specific experience or something like that. So you want to be able to meet that demand. So I would use like FAL AI or Replicate for the API. But Glyph does have an API that you can experiment with.
Yeah.
So this is the Glyph
You
API.
could like use Glyph as a playground to test many things, and then maybe if you go like full scale in production, you could move it to Replicate or some other.
Exactly. Yeah. So you could do that too. Like you could experiment. I really think Glyph is like the best playground right now. So like you could experiment with a ComfyUI workflow and like the different LoRas in the Glyph playground. Then all you do is they have it in like the API format too. Is you just come here, you go to view source, and then you just grab this ComfyUI workflow and you plug that. I think FAL has like ComfyUI to API stuff, and Replicate for sure has it. You just grab this workflow. It's already has an API format. You take it to Replicate, and now you could deliver. That's like client ready deliverable, right? So to your point, I think Glyph is like a really great playground. Yeah, do that.
Cool. Thank you for your reply.
Oh yeah, turn yourself into a little toy. Yeah, there's a bunch of like random things on Glyph. There's that like little toy one. There's like more useful things. Like I made this one for somebody who like does real estate. Where is it? So this one is town square at night with fire coming out of well. So they uploaded like an image of the low res image of this. And then it just like slightly modifies it with AI. So there's like definitely more useful things on here. There's like memes. There's a bunch of different things that you can use on here. But this is essentially if Replicate and like Hugging Face like merged together and was like easier to use for everybody, I think is like a good way to put it. But yeah, RunPod, we do have the RunPod thing running. Again, the issue with RunPod is like, it's pretty technical. If to use this GUI, I gotta come here. Okay, so, oh, looks like there's an issue. No. Yeah, using the cloud GPUs is pretty overwhelming. Okay, there we go. It is working now. And so it has the Flux or the SD 1.5 installed. Get the image. I don't know if it has Flux. Yeah, so this is the issue with the cloud GPUs, as I mentioned, is if you use a workflow, you're going to have a bunch of missing nodes, which is perfectly fine if you know how to navigate this. But it's like, I need to come into here into the manager, install missing custom nodes. And it's just not as up to date, and it's missing like some very essential stuff. And again, if you're not like technical, this is like very overwhelming. And especially if you don't have it like local, it's very hard too. Some people say that you can learn it and it's easy, but if you have the time, then definitely learn it. But not everybody has 40 hours, or I wouldn't even say 40, maybe like 10 to 20 hours to like really learn this tool in and out. And it's really frustrating. Like, I don't want to downplay it. Like, some people in the space do seem to downplay that like it's really easy to use, but it can be pretty daunting and it can be very hard sometimes. Do you see social media managers using Glyph? Yeah, I think like the target user for Glyph is, I think you could use it for social media. The other thing that I did want to mention is like there's a bunch of other like sites too that are coming up around like the text to image stuff that are free, because like what's happening right now is that everyone's competing for users and they're making things for free. So why not use it if it's free and you get commercial rights? So Playground AI is another one that they just released their models pretty good. Again, you could do this with Flux too. I don't think it's going to remain free forever, but right now it's free. And you could do things like this for social media. You can do the same thing with Flux. And then the other one is like ideogram, that's free too. Like these insanely good models are available for free. It's not going to be like that forever, but in the short term, maybe you could do something like this. But like the benefit that like the open source models have, as opposed to ideogram or playground, is you can train specific LoRas on subjects, right? You can't really do that. Maybe they'll add it soon to playground or like ideogram, but like with Flux and like using ComfyUI, and the reason I'm like such a big advocate for it is because if I can just find like the glyph thing. If I wanted to introduce like plasticine, like claymation, then just train a LoRa on it with 10 images, and then now you introduce that subject, right? And so maybe ideogram or playground knows it, but it's just like much more intuitive to be able to like have that customizability that you control and just take it anywhere you need to go. If for whatever reason glyph runs out of money or it becomes insanely expensive, then like in the future, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but whatever reason, you can just go and run it locally on your own machine if it ever gets to that point where it's not sustainable for your business in the future. So that's why I'm like, I advocate for the open source things as opposed to like the like playground or like ideogram. But again, it's completely your flavor. Like right now, these things are free to use. So like, why not use it? Especially if they're giving you like commercial rights. But that's just like my general opinion and how I think about things. Yeah. Yeah, anything else that I didn't cover? I hope that was helpful. It was a bunch of information for sure. Is there anything that I could expand on or like?
Personally, I was just wondering if you could show on RunPod, how do you open the template ComfyUI? Because it looks like the same as Vast.
Yeah,
I just wanted
so
to see how it
what
works.
I did was I deployed the pod, RunPod SD ComfyUI, and then you connect, and then connect to HTTP service.
Mm.
And then now we have, it looks like this is the,
But then where do you put your safe sensors and CKPT and everything
yeah, let me see.
when it's on the cloud?
That I do not know. Let's see.
Okay.
Edit pod. Looks like the volume is mounted here. Workspace. Where's workspace? Yeah, to be honest, I'm not the best person to ask about these like cloud stuff.
Okay. I'll have a look.
It's really hard though, to be honest. I really resonate with the difficulty of putting the things in the cloud. It doesn't really seem obvious to me where I would click to.
Yeah, I guess there's a folder somewhere, but I will find it on Vast.
Okay.
Have a look.
Yeah, let me stop this one. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that's like just intro to these sort of things. Again, like cloud GPUs, I definitely recommend, but the quality of life is a little less. It can be very difficult. But yeah, any questions or anything like that? I know we're approaching at the hour and probably hard stops.
Mhm.
I just got a question. Like for me, I'm really I have no idea about how LoRa works and stuff, but I'm using it as a developer to integrate it. What would be, according to you, the easiest way to generate a kind of a dynamic avatar from a set of few pictures and integrate it with an API?
Yeah, your best bet for integrating with an API is on FAL. So the cool thing is like with FAL is like you train your LoRa and then you can just run inference. So you click here and then now you come over here and like you run the API and it gives you the whole like how to use it as an API.
Okay, so I should just train it on FAL and then do my request as I would do on this specifically trained model?
Yeah, exactly. You
Okay.
would run inference on that specifically trained model, and you can do the same with replicate as well.
And if I have to, is it better to add new picture with the time, or it doesn't matter to?
So you train the LoRa once, and then if you want to train it again, you use the data. You will use like a new data set. So What people typically do is they'll train multiple LoRas. They'll train like their first one, they'll see what didn't work, what doesn't work. They'll adjust their data set, adjust their things like their captions, their different settings, and they'll maybe train like 10 to 20 or whatever amount that they're comfortable with. And then they'll pick the best one and they'll release that. So yeah, like whenever you're adding images, it's not like you add images to the same LoRa. You would do new ones. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, and one last question. Is there a way to evaluate it? Like, how would you evaluate image quality and consistency?
Yeah, that's actually not like there's not a good way to do that right now. Locally, what I've seen people do is like they'll generate a bunch of images from they'll do their own like evaluation. But the best way right now is like on a gut feeling, like you try a few, see if it learned the thing well. That's actually not solved right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a human in the loop.
Yeah, human in the loop. Yep.
Okay.
Hey, any more questions? Mathieu is leaving. Okay, Mathieu, thanks for coming. If there are no more questions for today, I wanted to personally thank you, Miguel, because that was so insightful. And luckily, we have the replay so that we can dive deeper into everything you've shown us, like maybe with like low speed for me.
Yeah, sorry.
It's fine. It's just a lot to get started with, like solid tools and explanations. So thank you. And I guess one of you guys starts building with Glyph, you can ask Miguel for assistance, advice.
Yeah, anything with Glyph, ComfyUI. Like I do some contracting for Glyph, but I'm definitely not like beholden to just using Glyph. Like I'm definitely a big advocate for using like the own tools like on RunPod and stuff like that. So let me know if I can help with anything. My specialty is in like local, but I can probably point you to somebody who knows like RunPod or something like that, like in the Banadoko Discord, as I sent to you, Marie. But yeah, always happy to help. Like however, just
that
DM
could
me.
be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And how much is it to acquire the least expensive local device option?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because the least expensive is not the best. So what I mean by that is some of these models have like a specific requirement on the VRAM. So it's almost I used to have a 3060 Ti, which had like gigabytes of VRAM, and it was like $400. But it wasn't good for running the AI models because like you need like a 4090. If you're gonna go local, it really only makes sense to run like a 4090 or like a 4080 Super, which has 24 gigabytes of VRAM. There is some work being done. Again, I don't know. Apple is trying to do some work to like make the diffusion ecosystem run better on the Macs.
Yeah.
But it's still early, right? A lot of this stuff is still super early.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not the case for the future. Apple has a huge incentive to make this stuff work on Macs very well. But yeah, it's early right now. So
But it's crazy because
yeah.
it's still they are three very powerful. I played Resident Evil on my MacBook and everything, like it was super beautiful, but still on graphical card and GPU, it's still not there. So you can feel it's powerful, but just so far from NVIDIA right now. So
yeah, NVIDIA definitely has a big link. But yeah, Raspberry Pis, no, I wouldn't recommend that just because they are not powerful. There's this company that they're actually working on like making the AI run in Raspberry Pis, but it's so slow. I bought one of their things. It's called Premiere.ai, but it's so slow and like the models are still very early, right? Like maybe in 5 years they're going to become smaller and more powerful, but for right now, like you need these like beefy. Like if I show you my computer, it's huge, like to run like the local stuff. And these data centers are like insanely massive too. So it's crazy and stupid how much like power is going in to generate like one image.
yeah, and that's why I had to stop, because I did start on the code to do Dream Boost and LoRas on Google Colabs and everything, but after Stable Diffusion 2 or XL, I think I had to stop because it was just so powerful. I couldn't run it freely, and yeah, it became just so more expensive. And even on Google Colab, you had to pay a lot to run one Dream Boost or LoRa or whatever. So I just had to give up on Stable Diffusion at some point.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten like worse as the models have gotten bigger. Like me personally,
Yeah.
I still, even though I have a 4090, I'll still use like foul or replicate to train my LoRas, just because I don't. It's hot right now. It's the summer. I don't want my electricity bill to be super high. I don't want my house to be super hot. So I still use like these cloud platforms, even though I have a cloud GPU.
Yeah, okay.
Or
Interesting.
local GPU.
Okay.
Okay, I think we covered pretty
Thank
much
you.
like everything we had to cover today. So again, thank you so much, Miguel.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
we're going to be letting you start your day and letting the French finish theirs. And I hope everyone will have a great weekend. And if you want to follow Miguel, it's Angry Penguin PNG on Twitter, X, right?
Yeah, Angry Penguin PNG, and then yeah, just shoot me a DM. I'm always happy to chat,
Okay.
help out, whatever.